What are cognitive distortions and how may they be affecting us? We're going to do a deep dive today, so stay tuned and find out.
The Narc Ninja, bringing you the tools and tactics to heal and deal with users and abusers. And now the Narc Ninja himself, Christopher Fairchild.
Hi, and welcome to the Narc Ninja channel, bringing you tried and true, road-tested and approved tools and tactics to deal and heal from narcissistic abuse. So cognitive disorders, or distortions rather, are exaggerated or irrational thought patterns that can be causing some pretty negative psychopathological states, such as depression and anxiety, as well as deep rage. These tendencies are highlighted in cases of unhealed PTSD and complex trauma, by the way, for folks that are in a highly reactive state versus a grounded and responsive state. Now, we all have some thought tendencies that really mindful self-awareness is the true cure. So let's go through the list and just see if any of these ring any bells for you. Cognitive distortions, I don't know why I can't get that right today, are thoughts that cause individuals to perceive reality inaccurately. Now, in 1957, American psychologist Albert Ellis, though he didn't know it at the time, would aid in cognitive therapy in correcting cognitive distortions and indirectly helping a guy by the name of David B. Burns in writing the book, The Feeling Good Handbook. Ellis, also regarded as the grandfather of cognitive behavioral therapy, and also has been a huge hero of mine, by the way, for the last 30 years. I loved attending his lectures back in the day. He created what he called the ABC technique of rational beliefs. Now, the ABC stands for the activating event, beliefs that are irrational, and the consequences that would come from the belief. Ellis wanted to prove that the activating event is not what caused the emotional behavior or the consequences, but the beliefs and how the person irrationally perceives the events that aids the consequences. Now, with this model, Ellis attempted to use rational emotive behavioral therapy, or REBT, with his patients in order to help them reframe and reinterpret these experiences in a more rational manner. Thanks to Ellis's brilliant work, we can now also self-therapize by going through this list of the most common cognitive disorders. So let's go through this list of 11 cognitive distortions and see if any of us tend toward these unhelpful thinking habits. So number one, mental filter. Here you tend to filter things in or out of your conscious awareness. This is a form of tunnel vision where you only tend to focus on the part of something and you ignore the rest. You might, for instance, only filter out the negatives of a particular situation. You therefore only see the positives, or you fail to recognize the negative aspects of a situation and only acknowledge the positives. Your version of reality is therefore based on your flawed perspective of the negativity you see in each situation. Number two, jumping to conclusions. Here you tend to jump to inaccurate conclusions. You make a quick assumption about how things are and what they're going to be like in the future, otherwise known as predictive thinking. Or you will assume that you know what someone else is thinking, which is called mind reading. And these conclusions and assumptions are not based in fact or evidence, but rather based on your feelings, your biases, and your personal opinions. Now, this sort of distortion can really lead you down the wrong path. Number three, personalization. Here you tend to blame yourself for your problems, for everything that goes wrong in your life. You might, for instance, continuously blame yourself for all your misfortunes and bad luck. This will be true whether or not you're responsible or partly responsible for the problem or misfortunes. And taking responsibility for things is so admirable. However, it can end up being a very burdensome thinking habit that leads to very strong feelings of guilt, worthlessness, and regret. If you did blow it, then at least feelings of contrition and regret are appropriate. And if it was just a negative outcome in no way connected to you, then you are probably engaging in some distorted thinking patterns. Number 4, black and white thinking. Here one tends to only see the extremes of a situation. ACAs and we trauma survivors sure understand that. You either see one thing as being extreme or another, and that's really called black and white thinking. You will, for instance, either see the good or bad, the right, the wrong, the sad, the happy, the left, the right, etc. And because your extreme way of viewing things is there, there is never a middle ground. As such, you are unlikely to view things in an unbiased and balanced way. Now, narcissists are very adept at this sort of thinking distortion. They are either well above reproach or they are worthless and unlovable. And there's no middle ground. This is also how they regard you as well. They either idealize you or devalue. And that's just the facts, folks. Number 5, catastrophizing. Isn't that a great word? Here you tend to completely blow things out of proportion and make them out to be a lot worse than they should be. And the reality of the situation might be quite insignificant and small. However, because you're in the habit of catastrophizing, you will tend to make your problems larger than life, thereby making your problems even more difficult to overcome. I remember Dr. Ellis used to walk us through an example of this sort of thinking, and it went something like this. He would say, at first you're just at work, and you break your pencil lead, and you think, great, what if I can't find another pencil or a sharpener? Then I won't be able to do my work and get it done. And if I don't get my work done, they're going to fire me. Then I won't be able to pay my rent. And then I'll end up homeless and dying in the streets, 20 pounds overweight with a box of Lorna Doones or something like that. Anyway, but you get the drift, right? So, and I think all of us tend to maybe do that a little bit in our lives. Overgeneralization, number 6. Here you tend to reference your past to make assumptions about the present. I like to say excellence requires no precedence. But in this case, you might take one instance from the past and use that as a predictor or barometer of a current or future situation. Whenever you use the words he always or she always, everyone, you never, people never, I never, you always, you are at that moment overgeneralizing. Number 7, shoulding and musting. Here you tend to put unreasonable demands and pressures on yourself and on other people to do certain things. You tend to say, I must, I should, you must, you should. These statements provide insight into the standards you tend to uphold and the things you expect of yourself and others. These standards can, of course, at times be helpful. However, at other times, this stuff can become, well, a little diagnostic. Shoulding and musting can create unrealistic expectations that you or others will struggle to live up to. In other words, don't should all over yourself. 8, labeling. Here you tend to label yourself or other people in certain ways based on behavior in very specific situations. These labels you make from your belief systems exist. And the more you use these labels, the stronger your beliefs become. This can become a good thing. However, it is also unhelpful when you tend to label things a certain way despite the facts and the evidence that are inconsistent with the labels that you're making. It's thinking beyond any nuance, not unlike black and white thinking. Number 9, magnification and minimalization. Here you tend to magnify the positive attributes of another person, for instance, while at the same time minimizing your positive attributes. You are essentially devaluing yourself, bringing yourself down while raising the stature of other people. In this scenario, you tend to explain away, everything you have going for yourself, including your positive traits and characteristics and achievements, as though they don't really matter. I know for we abuse survivors, we may have a dysfunctional exchange burned into our consciousness where we may say, we may feel a sort of an old pull sort of a way to say, hey, I'll give away all my power to you if you don't hurt me or if you'll give me some modicum of approval. Number 10, emotional reasoning. Here you tend to base your view of a particular situation in agreement with how you're feeling. So your feelings are really, your emotional body will dictate how you perceive a situation, despite any evidence to the contrary. You might choose to feel bad about something that is going to happen just because you're feeling miserable in the moment. You are therefore using your current emotional state as your barometer that will direct how you will view your life and circumstances. I like to say, I have never met a feeling that had an IQ. So, not that they're not valid. In addition to these, there is also an unhelpful thinking style known as deletions, which is number 11. Here you tend to remember your credits, but forget your debits. Our minds are very good at avoiding the useless pains that are caused by uneasy thoughts. However, deletion happens for different reasons. When it's necessary to concentrate our energies on a specific task, we delete every extra perception to help us focus on what we consider most crucial. Even during non-critical moments of our lives, we delete about 80% of the data that reaches our brains. And when an individual is anxious, they commonly develop tunnel vision, where they focus solely on the negative aspects of a situation and delete any positive aspects. Sometimes the whole picture can be colored by a single negative detail. And I'm going to be revisiting some of these things in a future video dealing with trauma triggers and helping the hyperreactive mind to move from reacting to responding. I hope this was helpful. If so, please consider subscribing and like and share and do the things. It helps my channel grow so that more people can see these videos. And leave a comment below. Feel free to ask any question or let me know if there's a subject you would like me to cover. I'm always looking for new ideas, and you guys seem to have the best ones. Thank you so much for sharing this moment with me today. Now, go be you to the full beautiful namaste.